Art block and burnout are two things that pretty much every artist is going to have to deal with at some point, whether that art be physically drawing like I do, or really just any creative field. You're going to have issues with this at some point and probably have. So the question is, are you stuck with it? Do you have to wait for art block to pass? A lot of people seem to think that you do. You just have to sit there and wait for yourself to get over it. And I disagree with that. There are steps that you can take to help get yourself out of burnout or art block. So before I go any further, what exactly is art block, and what's the difference between art block and burnout? By my definitions, I think that this could change a little bit depending on who you ask, but for the purposes of this video, I'm going to tell you what I mean when I say art block. So art block is essentially when you either feel like everything that you draw just looks bad, you don't really have any ideas, you just feel uninspired, and you don't really want to draw necessarily because you just feel like everything you draw is bad. And this might not even mean technically bad. Like technically, you might be doing good techniques, you might be drawing well, but you just feel like something about it just doesn't click. It just doesn't have a spark to it. And this is something that can be very frustrating. It definitely happens to me. And a lot of people that I've seen deal with this by just waiting to get over it, especially people that are newer to being an artist or newer to a creative outlet. A lot of times they'll just wait and they have to sit there and wait for inspiration to strike. And I don't really think that this is the right move for a lot of cases, because if I waited to feel inspiration or to feel like I didn't have art block, I probably would never draw. And I definitely wouldn't be where I am today if I didn't force myself to keep going and to find ways around art block. So what is burnout, and what's the difference between art block and burnout? So burnout to me is when I just feel like I can't draw. It's really just exhaustion. I'm just so tired of drawing. And this happens more when you're fighting an algorithm or doing it for a career. If you're just drawing casually and you don't have any deadlines and you don't have any quota to hit, then burnout's probably not going to be as much of an issue for you. But when you're constantly trying to pump out new content and constantly trying to come up with new ideas, it can lead to burnout. Burnout is something that I've had issues with for like the last year, and it's really just because I'm so tired of posting across TikTok, YouTube, Instagram, Patreon, and then I have a shop and I have a mail club, and just all of that together is a lot for me, and it's really caused me to have issues with burnout, and it's kind of forced me to find ways around that because I can't just stop posting. I'm trying to make a full-time career out of my art, and if I were to just say, oh, I'm too tired today, I can't draw, that's really not an option for me. I just have to keep going. And like I said, that is just a surefire way to find burnout. There's a reason that so many comic artists and mangakas go on hiatuses, because it's just hard to keep pumping out content like that, especially when you have to keep an eye on trends and different things that people are watching. And the numbers can also contribute to burnout when you're constantly trying to find validation in social media and growth in social media, which just isn't happening these days like it used to be. It can just be difficult to keep going and to keep posting. I personally struggle more with burnout than art block. I find that burnout can cause art block and vice versa, but you know, some people might consider these the same things, but just for the purpose of the video, I just wanted to give you how I differentiate the two and how I go about combating these issues. So what causes art block? Before we can go about solving the problem, we kind of have to talk about the things that can cause it. So like I said before, the things that can cause both of these are deadlines, algorithms, repeating the same things over and over again, and falling into a comfort zone. If you stick with your comfort zone and just keep drawing the same kind of characters from the same kind of angles over and over and over and over again, that can cause art block. Even though it seems like practice and repetition might be a good thing, too much of it without introducing new sources, new inspiration, new references can actually cause art block and make you feel like you're moving backwards rather than forwards. Another thing that can cause it is if your head is improving faster than your hand. So a lot of times our perception of art and our ability to differentiate correct proportions and incorrect proportions can move faster than our actual ability to draw those correct proportions, and that can contribute to art block, where you think you're getting worse or you think all of your art is bad, but it's not that your art's gotten worse, it's just that your perception of it has gotten better. So this is just something that you do have to keep in mind. And the last couple things that causes it for me is just exhaustion, being tired, having a terrible sleep schedule. I have a terrible sleep schedule, and that always contributes. If I don't get a lot of sleep, then I always draw badly. I always feel like what I draw looks bad, and I just feel like I can't think straight. So sleep contributes to it a lot, and that is something that I am not good at solving, but that is such a huge factor in burnout and art block that really just getting enough sleep does help a lot. And then lastly, this is kind of all of them together, just juggling too much, like I mentioned before, if you're trying to juggle multiple social medias or school and collaborations and commissions and drawing and all these things all together, it's just going to cause burnout. It's just going to cause you to kind of overload and not be able to draw or not be able to find joy in drawing. Because the most important thing with creativity is being able to find the joy in it. If you're not enjoying it and you just hate it and hate every aspect of it, then it's going to be burnout every time. You're not going to want to create, and you're probably just not going to be creating to your full potential. So you always want to try to find ways to bring out the joy in creativity and in creating art, or else you're just going to default to burnout or art block. So now the big question, how to fix it. So the biggest thing in today's society is you've got to stop obsessing over numbers. If you're drawing just to gain followers, it's not going to last. You're not going to be able to keep doing it. I have been consistently posting across social media for about 4 years now, and I can tell you it's actually extremely difficult. I used to post about 3 times a week, every single week. Now it's really 1 to 3 times a week, and that's still a struggle for me. It's just the longer that I've been doing it, the harder it is to keep putting out content. And part of that is my drawings now take me longer than they used to. They're more detailed, they're darker, there's more layering, and it just takes me longer to do the drawings, which makes me not want to work on them, and all in all, it just makes it harder for me to upload as consistently as I used to. I still do upload about 1 to 3 times a week, so it's still very consistent, very constant, and it causes problems with motivation sometimes because you finish a drawing and then you think, okay, now I got to start the next one, instead of being like, oh, I'll just draw when I want to. So chasing numbers on social media, chasing followers is not a good way to improve in your art. It'll discourage you, especially with the algorithms changing the way that they've been. They just are not in a place where they're set up to encourage you at all. Algorithms are there to keep eyeballs on the app. They are not there to be your friend. So if you're trying to grow in this day and age on the internet, you're not going to improve in your artwork if that's what you're worried about. But yeah, so my number 1 tip is stop obsessing over numbers, followers, and social media accounts, because it's just going to cause discouragement. Tip number 2, go back and learn the basics. A lot of times for me, if I start thinking that all of my artwork looks bad, or I feel uninspired, or I just don't know what to draw, it's because I haven't practiced enough recently. And because I have to keep up a pretty consistent schedule with posting, a lot of times my practicing does fall through the cracks, and I just kind of fall into a rut, like I mentioned before, where I'm drawing a lot of the same thing over and over again, and I don't go back, I don't practice anatomy as much as I should, I don't go back and just practice drawing with references. And so going and finding references that inspire you and just doing a practice session, or doing some gesture drawings, or just practicing your fundamentals and going back and relearning and trying out new techniques can actually go a long way towards helping prevent burnout and towards helping get rid of that lingering art block. So if you find yourself stuck and you don't know what to draw, just practice. Go find some references and just practice those references. Don't do it for social media, just do it to practice and to help force yourself to start drawing. One thing that I really love doing that I don't necessarily see people talking about as much is I like to switch mediums. This could really apply to any creative field. If you are stuck and you feel like you can't create, you feel like nothing looks good, you feel like it all looks bad, switch mediums. Sometimes a drawing will take a really long time to finish and I just physically feel like I cannot draw another graphite drawing. I'll just switch mediums. I'll go to markers, I'll go to color. A lot of people have noticed that I haven't done as much graphite this year, and it's really just because I kind of got fatigued from drawing so much graphite, because my graphite drawings take me anywhere really from like 15 to 60 hours to draw. And 60 hours staring at one piece of paper, just shading for 60 hours is really just taxing, and it's really exhausting, and it makes me sometimes just not want to draw, and it's so tedious. So a lot of times when I just feel overwhelmed, I will switch mediums or just do some casual drawings that just are not on the same level and kind of reset my brain and help me find the joy in drawing again. I understand that not everybody has the money to go out and buy different mediums, so if you're looking for a cheaper medium, watercolor is a really great one to start with. You can get a pretty reasonably priced set of watercolors and it'll last you a really long time. I've actually never run out of any of my watercolor sets. They all still have quite a bit of watercolor in them, because a little bit of watercolor goes a long way, as long as you add water, because I've seen people try to do watercolor without water. Don't do that because that's not how they're meant to be used. But if you're trying to to find other mediums to experiment with at the most budget friendly, watercolor is a great way to do that. And kind of along with this, you can also try junk journaling, which is when you're just taping things into a journal and kind of drawing on top of them, or just experimenting and just trying new things. This is something that I also will do. I have a bullet journal, and when I'm feeling particularly stressed out, I'll just take a page of my bullet journal, and that kind of relaxes me and helps me do something that's somewhat creative, but also kind of has a guideline set around it. Another thing that can contribute to art block is a lack of inspiration. So a lot of people do fall into the Pinterest hole where you scroll on Pinterest for an eternity and you never draw anything, and that's not great. But I personally like to have art books. Art books are expensive. Sometimes you can find them online, but Pinterest kind of is the alternative to art books. But the reason that I personally sort of prefer art books is because I have a book in front of me. I can't use my phone. I can't get distracted by my phone. So I have just been collecting art books over the years and zines. I was recently introduced to the concept of zines, and it's like my favorite thing ever, especially when people take their sketchbooks and just scan them and do a little zine that's a lot more affordable and something that I'd like to try doing in the future. But basically, you can find a lot of them online for free, depending on the artist, and it just has all of their different sketchbook pages and experiments that they've done. And I find that these are some of the most inspiring things that make me want to draw immediately because other people's sketchbooks are just so cool. But all that to say, art books and zines are a great way to find inspiration, and more often than not will inspire you to start drawing and creating. Additionally, manga and comic books are kind of, in a way, art books on their own. You get to see an author's style, and I like to collect physical copies of manga as much as I can just to have as many different art styles around me as possible. And I do have a manga and comic collection just so that I have access to lots of different types of art styles. As far as drawing inspiration goes, I usually am more inspired to draw by manga panels than actually anime or cartoon. Just seeing the lines on the paper is a lot of times more inspiring to me. But you can watch TV shows, read books, I listen to audiobooks while I'm drawing a lot of the times, and all of those things, any storytelling that you can consume will inspire you and help you to not only draw IPs or fan art, it'll help you to draw your own characters. I find that it's pretty easy for me to come up with an OC that has a backstory just because I've read so many books and I think, oh, well, what if there's a character like this? And it just makes things easier the more stories that you have kind of kicking around in your brain. All right, next point. This is one of the most important things, in my opinion. You have to just start sketching sometimes. Like I mentioned before, a lot of people will just sit and wait for inspiration to strike or just wait to feel like they're out of their funk. And that just isn't a time-effective way to do it. If you're just drawing casually and you don't enjoy it and you don't want to draw anymore, that's fine. But if you want to improve or you want to pursue a creative field, you really have to learn to work around the feeling of being uninspired. So you have to find ways to find inspiration while you're working. But a lot of times for me, I'll start drawing and I just am not inspired. I don't really feel like drawing, but I just start drawing, and eventually halfway through the drawing, then I start getting into it and kind of pushing past my art block. And this is just something that I think is so important that may change from person to person. Not everyone may find this tip works for them, but for me personally, if I start drawing and I force myself to draw, a lot of times that's the only way to get me out of art block. Now, burnout, this can kind of make it worse, which is why I say if you're having burnout, then if you force yourself to draw something more casual, just for fun, whether it be junk journaling or just casually drawing, experimenting, that kind of thing, I find works better for burnout rather than just forcing yourself to draw something that actually looks good. Along with this, allow yourself to fail. This is something that I get stuck on. I'll have a drawing that I just will keep erasing and redrawing and erasing and redrawing. And sometimes the best thing to do is to just set it aside and say, that drawing's not going to work out. I'm going to do something else, and then just start something new. Because sometimes I will get stuck on one drawing that I just can't figure out. I just can't make it work. And then I can't draw anything else because I'm stuck on that one drawing, and it will just throw my whole week off. So sometimes you do have to know when to take a step back and say, look, this drawing is a failure and that's okay. I'm going to learn from it and move on. At the same time, forcing yourself to finish a drawing can also get you out of art block. So you have to be able to tell when it's a lost cause and you need to move on, and it's causing you too much problems to try to finish it. But other times I am really wanting to give up on a drawing. I don't like it, it looks bad, and I force myself to finish it. And then when I finally finish it, I'm like so relieved and I feel so accomplished for being able to finish something that felt like an inconquerable wall, that I am able to start drawing again. And I feel like I've learned something from it and I've come out on the other side, and I just feel so relieved and so happy that the drawing is done. So finishing a drawing and being able to call a drawing finished is something that is really helpful for me personally, getting out of art block or burnout, to just have something that I can check off and say, look, it's done. And that's something where I think social media actually does help me personally. If I post something to social media, it's done. I can't change it. I don't ever go back and erase stuff. Being someone that kind of leans more towards perfectionism, where I just will keep going back and changing things and perfecting things and thinking that I have to make it better. And it's like, where's the stopping point? Well, if you post it to social media or you give yourself a deadline, that can help you just say it's done. I can't change it anymore, and it helps you move on from that drawing. So that's one of the areas where I do think that social media has helped me, but on a whole, social media can cause a lot of bad habits and cause a lot of discouragement. But the fact that it can help you keep a record of your drawings and help you look back and see improvement and just force you to kind of have deadlines and goals set for yourself, it can help if you don't get too stuck and hung up on it. So these are the tips that I use regularly, and I don't know if anyone's really noticed that my art has changed quite a bit this year. This is kind of a little bit of an explanation why. Like I said before, this is really specific to me, so not all of these tips might work for every person, but I hope that they do help you, because burnout and art block can be two of the most frustrating things to deal with if you are an artist. I'd love to hear if any of these tips help you, and if you have any of your own, let me know, because I'd love to hear them. But thank you guys so much for watching. I do have a Patreon account. I usually post process videos with some voiceovers over on my Patreon, and then I also have a mail club over there as well. I'll have links for all of this below and also in my bio, but I'm hoping to continue posting at a somewhat regular schedule. My goal is to post Saturdays, but obviously it's not Saturday, so we shall see going forward if I can force myself to stay on schedule, but we'll see. I don't know. But thank you guys, and I will see you next time. Bye!